There was a guy who had a dream of going to the World Cup final. So if you're American, just think the Super Bowl. But the World Cup final, I think everybody knows. I think it's actually this year, this coming year, is going to be the World Cup. In America, yes, it's going to be in America. And the reason I say a dream is because the World Cup final is usually extremely expensive. Some people call it stupid expensive, very expensive to buy tickets. And this guy didn't just want to go to the final, but he wanted to sit in the best seats. By Yankees games, I heard they have a thing in America, New York Yankees, where you get an all-inclusive package and they give you all you can eat kosher food. Could you imagine you go to a baseball game, they give you steak, hot dogs, burgers, everything you could imagine. That's the type of seat he wanted at the World Cup final. So he goes to the World Cup final. He goes to his seat. He's living the dream. You can imagine you have a stadium, 60, 70,000 people that are wearing all their flags from their countries, their homeland, screaming, supporting. And he sits down in his seat and he looks at the guy next to him and he looks at the seat next to him and he sees the seat is empty. So he thinks to himself, okay, so maybe they didn't want to sit for the national anthem. Maybe they didn't want to come for the people playing before, whatever random band it's going to be or singer. And he realizes the game starts, he turns and the seat is still empty. So he turns to the guy and he says to the guy, I noticed you have an empty seat next to you. Do you know, is someone supposed to be sitting there, whatever? He says, yeah, that's actually my seat. She says, that's your seat? He says, why is it empty? He says, I'll tell you something. My wife and I, we always had a custom. Every 4 years, we went to the World Cup together, and the final was our biggest thing. It was huge. This is my wife's seat. Unfortunately, my wife just passed away, so she couldn't come to the World Cup final. So he says to me, he thinks for a second, and he says, but wait a second. I understand it's very hard and everything, but you didn't have a friend or a family member or a child or someone else in the family that could come to the game? He says, no, they're all at the funeral. So I felt at the beginning we had to start off with a little bit of a joke to get everybody back into it. So it's not really so connected to what I'm about to say, but I think it's funny, so it's good a little bit. There's a big question when every holiday comes around of what is the theme of that holiday, right? What are we celebrating? Why is it a holiday? And Hanukkah is one of those holidays where we have a direct answer from the Gemara. And I'm going to read to you. We're going to take a second. We're going to read this excerpt from the Gemara. The Gemara asks, in Gemara Shabbos, Daf Kaf Aleph Amud Beis, it says like this, 21b. My Hanukkah, what is Hanukkah? So the Gemara says very directly, when the Greeks went into the Heichal of the Beit HaMikdash, they impurified all of the oils that were in the Heichal. So what happened? The Hasmoneans, the Hashmonaim, were victorious. They came in and they looked for some oil and they only found one jug of oil from the seal with the high priest seal. And in this jug, there was only enough oil to light for one day. And there was a miracle and it lit for 8 days. Now, let me ask you a question, a very simple question. You would think every other time you have a holiday, what's the obvious miracle? We were attacked, we tried to be killed, we won, and we celebrate. That's every Jewish holiday. That's what happened Pesach, that's what happened Purim. Everybody knows it's basic, right? They tried to kill us, we won, we eat. It's it. 1, 2, 3. But if you hear the Gemara says, no. You think the obvious miracle is the military victory, right? Matisyahu and his sons and his small group beat one of the greatest armies of all time. That's the obvious miracle here. Gemara says, no, that's not the miracle of Hanukkah. What's the miracle of Hanukkah? Is they found a jug of oil that was supposed to light for one day and it lit for 8 days. Now, we all know that, so it sounds obvious, but you think about that, you think to yourself, could you imagine I told you, just to put it in different perspective, imagine I told you after the 6-day war, what was the greatest miracle of the 6-day war? It was not the military victory of the 6-day war. It was that somebody found a jug of oil in a little house somewhere in Yerushalayim, and they took the jug of oil and lit for 8 days. You would say, that's a cute story. Maybe you could put it somewhere in a newspaper article. It's not the miracle of the 6-day war. It's the military victory. So why would the Gemara tell us that the miracle of Hanukkah is not the military victory? It was the miracle of the oil. So here you see something unbelievable. I'm going to illustrate the answer with a story, and then I'll say the answer clearly. In the late 1990s, in Hungary, Hungary was released from the clutches of the Soviet Union. And there was teachers in New York that realized that now there would be Jewish children in Hungary that would be able to get a Jewish education. So they flew out with a delegation and they said, we're going to see if there's a need to open up a Jewish school in Hungary. So where did they go? They went to Budapest. They went to Budapest and they did an open night where they put ads in the newspapers that said, anybody who is interested in bringing their child to a Jewish school, please come to this open night. And we'll see, we'll take questions and we'll see if there's a real crowd of real Jews who need a school for their children. They all come, they show up, the delegation shows up and they think to themselves, meaning it was like tonight, they come to the room and they think how many people are going to show up in an open night for Jewish school after the Soviet Union falling. They think maybe there would be 10 families, maybe 20 families, 30 families. They would start something small in a house or something. They show up to the room. There's 450 families show up to try to bring their kid to a Jewish day school in Budapest. So they were stunned. They were not prepared for that. They were like 10 teachers standing there, 450 people staring at them like, what's going to happen now? So they decided to break the room into groups. They said, we're going to break the room into groups and we're going to do it as speedy as possible. We're going to go between the groups, we'll ask some questions, get all the names down. That's what we're going to do. One of the teachers is going around to the groups and he notices that outside the group, there's a guy standing alone who doesn't go into any other groups. So he goes over to the guy and he says to him, what's wrong? I noticed that you're not joining anything. You're not joining any of the groups. You don't want to say your story. You don't want to tell us who you are. This guy says, I'm very uncomfortable. I never said this story before in my life. The teacher says, listen, now is the time. We want to open up a school potentially for your child. Whatever your story is, please feel comfortable opening up, maybe just to me, one-on-one. This guy says, I'll tell you the story. He says, in 1944, when the Nazis, Yamach Shemam, may their memory be erased, were coming into Hungary, they came to Budapest, Hungary, and my parents were petrified. Now, he said, my entire life, I barely knew I was Jewish. We were one of those families, we did not even identify as Jewish. We were like, maybe if we were forced to, we were Jewish. We were not, it wasn't part of our life. So when I heard the Nazis coming, whatever, I thought to myself, we're not really Jewish, so it's not a big deal. I didn't understand at that time. He said, one night, I'm in my bedroom, and I hear my parents screaming. I hear a commotion. And I come downstairs, and I sneak, and I see that my parents are in the office. And I look in the lock through the keyhole. And I see that my mother and father are screaming at each other. And what are they saying? My mother is screaming at my father. They're going to come. They're going to round us up. They're going to send us to these places. I heard stories. I heard rumors. They're going to find us. We have to leave. We have to run. And my father was telling her, how are they going to know we're Jewish? How will they know that we're Jewish? We have nothing in our house. We have nothing in our documentation. We have nothing that shows we're Jewish. How is a Nazi that shows up to Hungary right now going to know that you and I are Jewish? And she keeps screaming at him. He keeps screaming at her. And they're going back and forth like this. And I could feel the anxiety in the air was tremendous. All of a sudden, she's in the middle of screaming. They're going to know. They're going to find us. She stops in the middle and she looks on top of the bookshelf in the study, in the office. And I see my father follows her eyes and they both look at the same thing. She goes, she walks over to the bookshelf, she takes a stool, and she takes something off the top of the bookshelf. And I look closely and I see that it was a Jewish prayer book. I'd only seen one a few times in my life, but I knew it was a Jewish prayer book. Today we know it's called the Siddur. My mother takes it, she grabs it, she starts crying and she starts turning the pages and putting her fingers on the pages, crying and crying. And she looks at my father, and my father has a very stern face, and my father nods his head. And she takes the book and she throws it in the fire, and it burns. And he tells the guy, he said, I cannot describe to you, in that moment, I felt like something horrific had happened. I never even knew we had this prayer book. I didn't really know what it was. I felt like I witnessed something horrific, something terrible had happened. And I ran upstairs to my room and I was crying and crying and crying. And I said to myself, I will not stop. I will not rest until one day I'm going to bring my child into a Jewish school and I'm going to give him a Jewish prayer book. That's going to be my mission. So when I heard that you guys wanted to come and open a Jewish school, I said, I'm going to bring my son into this school and I'm going to give him a Siddur one day. And now I'm here, and that's why I'm here. So we asked the question, why did the sages make it that the miracle of Hanukkah is not about the military victory. It's a part of it. But the essential miracle of Hanukkah is that we light the menorah, that the oil lasted for 8 days. Because the sages were very wise. The sages knew something. The sages knew that the military victory at that time was not going to last. I actually went to a museum today in Tel Aviv. I think it's brand new, called Anu. They redid the whole place about the Jewish people, the history of the Jewish people. What does it write on the wall? They wrote about the Hashmonayim. What's the history of the Hashmonayim? Most of us know them as the great soldiers that won, the few against the many, the weak against the strong. That's not what it writes on the wall, because it's not actually what happened afterwards. What happened afterwards? The Hashmonayim were one of the most corrupt kingdoms that the Jews ever had. Afterwards, it collapsed. 200 years later, the temple was destroyed again. And the sages knew then, it cannot be about the military victory. Because as one of the rabbis mentioned, I think it was Rabbi Weiss, that the war on Jews at that time was the ideology of the Jewish people. It was not about exterminating Jews. It was about exterminating Judaism. So the sages said, what is going to be the victory of Hanukkah is not the military, it is the oil. The light of the Jewish people can never be extinguished. Have you ever noticed also, why is it oil? Why do we use oil? How do you get oil? How is oil made? You have to press it. You ever been in school where they bring those presses and they squeeze it down? It has to be squeezed, pulverized, and then the oil comes out and then you have light. So you see, sometimes you feel like you're squished. You feel like your back is against the wall. And the Jewish people, we're the nation that when you put our back against the wall, that's when we show up. And I'll tell you, after October 7th, something that not a lot of people have been speaking about, because all the negative things have been happening, have been taking all of our attention. But the fact that there has been a spiritual awakening all over the world, if you talk about different outreach organizations, Aish, Chabad, and whoever it is, there has been record numbers at every single program, every single Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Hanukkah party, a crazy amount. Any rabbi will tell you this all over the diaspora, that Jews have felt that we are now being called to action. That a Jew that before may have said, maybe I'm a Jew, I identify as a Jew, I feel like I'm a Jew, all of a sudden feels I'm a Jew and I need to show the world that I'm not scared. I have to light up the world. How do I know how much time I've been speaking? Okay. So I'll end off with this. There's a rabbi today who's a rabbi in Nuremberg, Germany. Everyone knows Nuremberg, Germany for the Nuremberg trials, Kristallnacht, which today actually I think they're making a movie about the Nuremberg trials. It's about to come out. And this rabbi got a very strange letter with a very strange gift not long ago. There was someone that returned to him a golden menorah, an antique golden menorah. And they wrote to him that I am returning what rightfully belongs to you. So he tracks down this person. He asks them what happened. He says, I'll tell you what happened. He said in 1938, when Kristallnacht happened, the first Kristallnacht, and the Nazis, or whoever it was going through that town and was burning shuls and was burning Jewish restaurants or butchers or whatever it was and just destroying, breaking glass. There was one shul called the Adas Yisrael Shul. And in that shul, there's a famous picture in the shul of a golden menorah on the window. So there was a boy, a little German boy who was not Jewish, who saw the shul was burning. And he looked in the window and he saw there's gold, right? And he's thinking to himself, it's just going to burn in the fire like that? There's gold, right? I have to get the gold. Well, so this little boy, 10-year-old boy, goes running into the shul while it's on fire, and he grabs the menorah and he runs out. Now, when he came home, his father was actually a mensch, and his father was very upset with him. His father said to him, you're joining these hooligans, these crazy people in the street being destructive. You're stealing from the Jewish people. The boy said, oh, they're Jews. As matter of fact, they're Jews. As matter of fact, father smacked him in the face. Father told him, this does not belong to you. You have to return it. But then who was he going to return it to at that time? He's not going to go return it to Jewish people. So it stayed in our family, and it stayed in our family for decades. And all of a sudden, he said, I heard today that there's a rabbi who's in Nuremberg, Germany. So I said, oh, we're going to return the menorah to him. Now this menorah had passed to this guy's nephew, and his nephew returned it to the rabbi. So Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson wrote to his friend, Rabbi Chitrick, and he said, what does it feel to light? He took the menorah, and for Hanukkah that year in Nuremberg, Germany, he lit that menorah. He said, what does it feel like to light that menorah? How does that feel to light a menorah like that? That's unbelievable. Could you imagine? So Rabbi Chitzuk said, I'll tell you exactly what I thought. He said, when I was lighting the menorah, I was thinking to myself, imagine you were a fly on the wall in Nuremberg, Germany, 1938. If you were in the Adas Yisrael synagogue at that time, and you saw Germans coming in, ransacking, burning, destroying the whole place, what would you say to yourself? This is the end of Judaism, right? Germany at that time was the most sophisticated, artistic, scientific, the cutting edge of society, the most progressive, the most amazing place. And in this place, in Nuremberg, Germany, Jews are able to be treated like rats, like nothing, burning, destroying, breaking everything that they have. He said, imagine you were a fly on the wall and you're watching this, you would say, this is the end of the story, right? The Jews keep saying, oh, we rise again, we never can be. You would say, this is the end of the story for Jewish people. He said, and now to come, and I don't remember exactly what year he lit the menorah, let's say 2021, and you light the menorah, and I'm standing in this place. He said, what could be a stronger message to the world that we are never going away? We are always going to be here. We're always going to rise again. And I'm telling you, for me, myself, I grew up in Miami, Florida, and now, Baruch Hashem, I made Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. And you never feel, in this place, you feel it every single day. You meet someone. I was walking in Zichron Yaakov. To me, one of my favorite places in Israel is Zichron Yaakov. It's spectacular. Somebody told me it's the Tuscany of Israel. I think it's unbelievable. I love Zichron Yaakov. And there's a place over there that you have off the Midrachov. There's an art gallery. If you've ever been on the Midrachov over there, you'll know that Zichron Yaakov, one of the most beautiful things about it, has a new nook you discover. Every time you go, you'll find a new place that you didn't know about before. And off the Midrachov, towards the top of the Midrachov, when it exits to the street, there is an art gallery off to the side. And that art gallery always has fascinating art, etc. And this past trip, we go to the art gallery, we go to this guy, we always love to see this guy. My father's an art dealer, so we always talk and schmooze. And I get to the door, and I see on the door is a sign that's a Shiva sign. It says that somebody passed away, right? The sign, the dreaded sign in black and white that says when the funeral is going to be and when the Shiva is going to be. So next door to the art gallery is a barber. So I walk into the barber shop, and I say to him, why is there, and the store was closed. The art gallery was closed. It's usually always open. So I asked the barber, I say, why is the store closed? So he says, you know, his son passed away. The art dealer that I always go to schmooze with, he said his son just passed away a few months ago. Since then, he comes a little bit erratically. And my wife and I are standing there, and you just feel this, like, in this country, every single person that you meet, it could be your plumber, it could be your kablan, it could be the guy at the gas station, everybody has a story. And I didn't get to see him on that trip until I'm driving out. We're driving out of Zichron, and I look on the street, and I thought we were the only crazy people here in Yamim daven outside. And I see on the Midrachov in Yamim, there's 30 people standing there, look like they're in the middle of Shmon Esrei, smack, like right at the main part of the Midrachov. And I'm like, they're davening in the middle of the Midrachov. People must be upset, or people must be. And then I look, and I see standing in the middle of this group of people is the art dealer guy, who's clearly the chazan, who's leading the services with everyone around him coming and showing up because they know it's for his son. So I think for us, and here in this country, more than anywhere in the world, but really all over the world, we feel that the world is rising up against us again. And no, they're not exterminating us, the same way as it was before. It's an ideological war. They want to tell us this is not our land. They want to tell us that it doesn't belong to us. They want to tell us that we should just be cultural Jews. We should be a little bit more quiet, right? We should go back into our sheepskin. But comes along the holiday of Hanukkah, and it tells you that the Jewish light will never cease. The Jewish light will continue to be lit every single year again. And God willing, we'll continue to celebrate with many, many donuts, many sufganiyot, latkes, a lot of calories, and there'll be a workout class after Hanukkah. Chag Sameach. Thank you so much.